Diplomas for the privileged. A hidden economy of bought intelligence. A radiography of capitalism, the ugly truth.
A society of pretend merit. Imagine walking into a grand university hall, chandeliers, Latin mottos, portraits of distinguished scholars. Yet behind those gold-framed diplomas, a quiet deceit whispers. The scions of wealth are not nurtured by intellect but secured by inheritance, their education a performance, not a pursuit. They graduate not because they grasp logic, science, or ethics, but because their family's money did the talking. Such is the tragedy and theater of capitalist education. A marketplace where intelligence is not cultivated but bought, where truth is less valuable than connections, and where the illusion of merit sustains the machinery of inequality. Capitalism did not invent favoritism, of course. Feudal lords also secured their children's futures through master tutors, bought titles, and arranged apprenticeships. But capitalism perfected the art, dressing exploitation in academic gowns and graduation caps, sanctifying privilege under the banner of excellence. What if those who lead economies, craft policies, and engineer our societies are not the brightest, but simply the most connected? Reflection.
If intelligence can be purchased, what happens to truth, justice, and the spirit of progress we claim to defend?
Feudal roots. Learning for the lords before there were Ivy Leagues or private academies, there were castles and courts. Education under feudalism was not a universal right, but a hereditary luxury. Noble children learned Latin, theology, and the arts of governance from private tutors paid handsomely, not to challenge them, but to polish their prestige. Peasant children, in contrast, learned the art of survival. Feudalism shaped the world through a system of arranged privilege. Knowledge flowed upward, not outward. At its core, learning served as a tool of reinforcement to preserve the hierarchy, not to enlighten the masses. The wealthy of that era didn't need to earn respect. It came built into their name. When inheritance determined destiny, the mind became ornamental, a jewel to display, not a compass to navigate truth. Medieval classrooms were not halls of inquiry, they were rehearsal stages for the perpetuation of inherited power. Question.
When did education stop being a quest for knowledge and become a certificate of class?
Capitalism's rebranding of privilege. Enter the Industrial Revolution, the age of rationality, efficiency, and opportunity. Factories replaced feudal lands, and stock markets replaced monarchs. Yet, the aristocratic mindset remained. The elite simply swapped bloodlines for bank accounts. Now, education was repackaged as meritocracy. But only those who could afford the tuition gained access to the merit-making machine. Private academies, prep schools, and universities became sanctuaries of the rich, guarded by wealth, their gates polished by the illusion of fairness. In these spaces, teachers often became employees of privilege, service providers rather than educators. Their paychecks tethered not to truth but to customer satisfaction. If a failing grade threatened to jeopardize a future donor or legacy family, ethics could be quietly compromised. When education becomes business, truth becomes optional. Question.
How can a system that bills knowledge as a commodity ever reward genuine intellect?
Diplomas as decorative armor for the privileged child. A diploma is neither an accomplishment nor a challenge. It's an accessory. It grants access to gated boardrooms and nepotistic positions where credentials matter only for appearance. Title, not talent, maintains the illusion of competence that sustains capitalist hierarchy. Companies recruit them onto boards, councils, and think tanks, not for brilliance but for their last names. The performance continues, well-tailored ignorance disguised as leadership. The employee who dared question them, truly intelligent, perhaps even visionary, remains expendable. For power does not always reward thought. Often it punishes it. The system compensates the unqualified not for their contribution, but for their continuity. It ensures the dynasty survives, the charade sustained, and those who see through it, they're often too busy paying off real student loans to topple it. The world's thrones are not filled by thinkers, but by inheritors with store-bought crowns. Question.
What kind of society rewards imitation over innovation, and can it ever evolve?
Teachers without freedom behind every privileged diploma is a silenced teacher. The educator, once revered as a moral compass, is now often cornered between integrity and livelihood. In elite schools, teachers learn quickly the unspoken rule: The customer, not the student, is always right. Many are handsomely paid to look away, to inflate grades, to guide essays that were ghostwritten by consultants. The classroom becomes a stage where teachers recite approved scripts to satisfy wealthy guardians. The school calls it maintaining standards. The cynic calls it selling validation. And when teachers resist, their jobs are quietly replaced by those who won't. Knowledge itself suffers a quiet death between the paychecks of compliance. Can truth survive when its guardians must sell silence to afford rent?
What would education look like if teachers, not donors, held the real power?
The morality market. In capitalism, morality itself becomes a marketable commodity. Charity dinners for elite schools showcase philanthropy while perpetuating inequality. Conferences titled Innovation for All are led by graduates who bought their understanding of the phrase. The hypocrisy is both tragic and mesmerizing. The same families that purchase their children's education fund. Scholarships for token diversity, a PR stunt to wash guilt with good press. The media applauds, the universities expand endowments, and the cycle turns. Meanwhile, the truly brilliant minds from working class backgrounds struggle for recognition under crushing debt and bureaucratic indifference. Their discoveries, ideas, and voices are often lost or exploited by the same institutions that denied them entry. Capitalism turns even conscience into a brand asset. Question:
When morality becomes marketing, how can justice remain anything but performance?
The myth of the self-made. Every generation of privilege depends on one myth, that their success is self-made. The myth is repeated so often that it becomes ideology. They forget the donations that paved their way to admission, the recommendations written as favors, and the internships arranged by family friends. They call it networking, not nepotism. The narrative is crucial because capitalism depends on the illusion of fairness. It must convince the middle class that success is within reach, that hard work will eventually be rewarded. This delusion keeps the engines running while the spoils remain sealed. Those who question the myth are labeled bitter, lazy, or radical, anything but truthful. Yet no honest society can progress when ignorance wears the robes of achievement. The most dangerous lie is not the one told by power, but the one the powerless are taught to believe. Question:
How many success stories would collapse if we subtracted inheritance, connections, and corruption?
The economic consequences of fake elites. The damage is not only ethical but economic. When unqualified elites occupy the commanding heights of corporations and governments, innovation slows, decision-making decays, and crises multiply. History is full of examples, from financial collapses spawned by incompetence to tech monopolies managed by mediocrity with money. A society where position trumps wisdom cannot sustain itself long. Markets falter, trust erodes, and rebellion brews. Feudalism fell not just because of injustice, but because inefficiency made it unsustainable. Capitalism risks the same fate, not through revolution, but through rot. Every empire that rewarded lineage over logic found its grave in arrogance. Question:
Are we watching our own empire, the capitalist meritocracy, slow die the same death?
The psychology of the purchased mind. There is another tragedy. The inner emptiness of those raised to believe their worth is measured in wealth, not understanding. These elite children, though advantaged in comfort, grow barren in imagination. They are defended from consequence, but deprived of curiosity. They inherit thrones, but not thought. In protecting them from failure, their parents also protect them from learning. The bribed diploma becomes a curse, a silent reminder that even their praise was purchased. Beneath the suits and smiles, many feel the quiet fear. Am I truly capable? The system doesn't just corrupt the poor's opportunity, it dehumanizes the rich's spirit. When you steal struggle from a child, you steal their soul. Question:
What kind of legacy is it to pass down wealth without wisdom and power without purpose?
The collapse of meaning. When education, work, and merit lose authenticity, society loses meaning. Language itself becomes empty. Words like leader, degree, or expertise lose value. Truth becomes whatever the rich can afford to print. The philosopher Hannah Arendt warned that when lies become normalized, not even truth-tellers can be recognized. That is where capitalist feudalism, as we now live it, leads. The public no longer knows whom to trust, so they trust no one. Cynicism replaces hope. And once cynicism becomes culture, corruption becomes destiny. When words lose meaning, the people lose direction.
What happens when society forgets what real achievement even looks like?
Education as liberation, the forgotten dream yet. There is still power in real education, the kind that frees, not flatters. When a teacher teaches for truth, when a student hungers for knowledge rather than certificates, something revolutionary stirs. From public schools underfunded but alive, from marginalized communities that learn despite the odds, emerges the real brilliance history remembers. The lesson of every age is this: honesty and intellect may be suppressed, but they cannot be erased. The future depends not on the inheritance of privilege, but on the courage of truth seekers who refuse to sell their minds to the market. True education is rebellion with purpose.
What would our world look like if every mind, not every wallet, had equal access to knowledge?
Reclaiming the future. The problem isn't that the rich care about their children. It is that they care only for their endurance, not their enlightenment. So long as wealth can bend truth and award unearned prestige, injustice will wear a graduation gown. These pampered movers and shakers, politicians, CEOs, investors, and upper managers will continue shaping the world through arrogance disguised as education. But awareness is contagious. Once people see that the gatekeepers were never scholars, only inheritors, the edifice begins to crumble. But awareness is contagious. The moment people see that these self-proclaimed geniuses were never scholars, merely beneficiaries of inherited access, the entire illusion begins to collapse. We must reclaim learning as a sacred human right, not a purchasable performance. Restore independence to teachers. Protect public education as the last refuge of truth. Dismantle the market's monopoly over merit. Remind the privileged that titles do not create intelligence, integrity does. We must fight to make learning sacred again. Restore public education, protect teachers' independence, dismantle wealth's monopoly over merit, and remind the privileged that titles don't make intellect, actions do. Now, before you leave this room or close this page, ask yourself something dangerous. Something world-shifting. A world that sells intelligence for profit will soon have none left to buy. Question.
Will we stand by and let another generation of gilded incompetence write our history? Or will we reclaim education as humanity's birthright, making it honest, equal, and free?
A call to conscience. The illusion of capitalist meritocracy survives only because we accept it. Every time we applaud undeserved prestige or equate wealth with wisdom, we strengthen its hold. But awareness is power. To challenge the counterfeit of education, we must reclaim learning as a public good, not a private trophy. We must demand transparency in education, empower teachers to teach without fear, and value evidence over lineage. Above all, we must learn to ask, always, who benefits from the story being told. Because history shows, when the people awaken to the fraud of inherited privilege, no diploma, no boardroom title, no gilded castle can protect the deceivers for long. Will we let another generation of gilded incompetence write our history, or will we reclaim education as humanity's birthright, honest, shared, and free? The answer depends on what we dare to value next, our children as curiosity or their inheritance. The truth may be sold, but it cannot be owned. Final question and call to action.
Will we continue to applaud the glitter of purchased intelligence? Or will we rebuild a world where wisdom, not wealth, decides our future?
Please tell me what you think and how you feel about this issue. Analyze it, brainstorm it, debate it, and if you like it, please share it. Thank you for watching. I truly and highly appreciate you, and God bless you.